Hello and welcome to episode 245 of Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast in all of the internet. My name is Jordan Willis.
My name is Patrick Nisley.
My name is Summer Rain, and boy, oh boy, do we have a very special guest for you all today. We've got game writer Liz Myers here with us today.
Hello.
Liz is here to talk all about romance in video games, our main topic for the day. Thought it was an appropriate topic for the day that this is releasing on, and you'll know what we're talking about when it's the day. But other than that, you know, we always got news. Nintendo financials got updated. The Sora amiibo is coming out. More layoffs. I feel like it's going to be every week for the entire year, which is just sad, but
we're not going to stop talking about it because it's important. We're going to keep talking about it.
True. But other than that, how's everyone doing? How's your weeks?
I don't have a whole lot to update on. Mine was also chill. Nothing big. I guess
you started streaming again, Patrick.
I started streaming again. Yeah, if you want to watch me make games, you can come over to my Twitch. But I guess the Super Bowl happened, and like, so it was like, that's not a big deal, or it is, but like for me personally, but I went to a party for it. That's like that's the one thing I did. It was like all the people. It's not a big.
It's like an excuse to eat like chips and queso, though, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. What was your favorite food item from the party?
Oh yeah, I'm not that exciting. I like hummus.
Hummus is good. What kind of hummus, Patrick?
It was homemade hummus. I don't know. It's just.
Oh, you don't know what was in it? Okay. That's even better, though. Yeah. That's great.
I'll go next. Same. Just shooting a movie on the weekends, working a regular job during the week. And the end is in sight, though. We are pretty far along in the process. So we'll be shooting this weekend and probably the weekend after that, and then take a small break before we kind of assess where we're at in the whole process. But I mean, a lot of it's shot. So I feel pretty good about that. I did not watch the Super Bowl. I watched the halftime show, but like right after it aired. So it was someone who had taken the halftime show, but then cut it in half, but not like exactly in half or like in two times. It was in like 3 to 10 second clips. Oh. I watched the halftime show in probably the worst way you could possibly watch it, and it just kept cutting, and then the music would sound off because of all the rhythm. It wasn't cut to the rhythm. But you know, saw Ludacris's Sora boots, as someone commented in the Discord, which pretty accurate. They had like Tron looking outfits.
I was
kind of what they said.
Yeah. Especially when they came out on skates.
That was pretty cool. I will give them that. The skates thing was cool. And then also I was just like, there are so many people on the stage and on the field right now. I don't even know how that coordination
the stage was
works.
Shaking, Patrick.
I was nervous that stage was going to break. Though that would have kind of been exciting too.
Gosh. I guess we're a football podcast now. We've never talked this long about a sport, I think. Ever.
We're talking about the halftime.
Yeah.
It's adjacent, I guess. The thing that I want to talk about just really quick is that I have lived in Oklahoma for 10 years. And in my 10 years of living here, when it's leading up to Lent season, more specifically the day before Lent starts, which is Fat Tuesday, there's always people who go online and say, where can I get punchki? Which, for those of you who don't know, the uninitiated, is a Polish donut, but it's a very specific kind, right, of Polish donut. And the answer is always nowhere. There's nowhere to get punchki here in Oklahoma until this year. They were shipped in from Illinois, but they were at all of the local groceries here this year. And I have eaten so much punchki in the past week to make up for last time. I've eaten so much punchki. That's all I wanted to say about my past week. This is that in gaming, really.
That's beautiful.
Awesome. Well, last week we had our 5-year anniversary special. That's right. We've been doing this show for 5 years. And we got so many great comments that I can't say everybody's comment, and I'm sure I'm going to miss people, but I'm going to try to list some names and some specific comments that jumped out at me. KSBOK, CJ, Hans, SwmpySouthpw, Segovia, Cool Uncle Vince, Real Tomato all commented on the Discord, as well as AV, who said, I listen to too many podcasts, and Switch Headz is one of the only two I feel a real attachment to. I look forward to it every week. It makes me happy and it makes me laugh. And that felt good to hear. Thank you, AV, and everybody else who shared. There's a lot of people who shared nice, similar sentiments. On our YouTube, we got a bunch of comments as well, including Bay and Hans, KerooSeta, AVK, and David Smith, who said they've been here since the beginning, and thanks for giving them something to listen to every week, or week after week. And that's awesome. Thank you, David. And also, I just really loved this comment from Eric Shaw, who said, "Is this Smash Ultimate? Because everyone is here." All 5 of us were on that episode. That was a nice comment, Eric. Over on Instagram, I picked this comment because I made this joke, so I was happy. Sprowlix said that sent me a crying, laughing. That's when Matthew said, like, talk to your friends, like at a library or at a this. And I was like, can't talk at a library.
Okay.
And then over on Twitter, I'm really happy to have this shout out because it's been a while since we've talked or shouted you out. But Pokemon trainer Jeremy made a comment on this episode. And nice to hear from you, longtime listener as well. Mariah Carey is the reason, not only for the season, but for this podcast as well. And that is true. We told that anecdote about Mariah Carey's song helping to form this podcast. So thanks to everyone who commented. That was that was just a few of the people that I pulled together. So thank you so much, because it was a lot of love from this past week. Really appreciate it. And now we also have a Patreon now. So some of those people who I just shouted out all signed up for it. I really appreciate that too. I think we all do. Yes. If you're want to help out the podcast, that's something you can do. Check out the Patreon. You can leave a review on something like Apple or Spotify. You could go share the podcast, and definitely please head over to the YouTube to see the video version and hit like and subscribe. That helps as well. And now we're going to talk about the news and rumors and video games for the week. We're going to start off with the Nintendo quarterly financial update. So, every 3 months we get to do this.
Yeah, we get
to do this. They put out their sales numbers. They have investors Q&A, and we get to look at how many Switches they sold, what the current software titles have been sold, and their forecast and all that. It's an interesting time right now, but let's start off with the hardware and software stuff, because I think that's always interesting.
Yeah.
I don't feel like the top 10, they have this list of top 10 software has changed a ton. Mm-hmm. But of note, I suppose, would be the placement of Tears of the Kingdom, kind of coming in at number 9.
Creeping up.
Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, their numbers are now at 24 million. I just think it's interesting, too, to look at the top 10 as a whole. And it's just it's Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, and then you got Animal Crossing and Smash. That's every top 10 game is in those 5 franchises.
I think it's also interesting Scarlet and Violet has not beaten Sword and Shield yet, especially because, everyone's like, this is finally the open world Pokemon. This is going to be the killer app. And I'm wondering if just some of that negative press.
I started to wonder about that too. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're only 2 million units apart, and they are 2 years apart. So that might be the factor there, because I was thinking that as well at first. Were Scarlet and Violet not as well received as Sword and Shield? I think there's just a 2-year difference there, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Also, is this only physical?
No, I think this is just everything, because Nintendo's the only people that know this. They don't share that with anybody else, but yeah, it's everything.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, but that makes sense too. Yeah, it'll get there.
Yeah, it'll definitely surpass it. I don't know, but it seems likely. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of shakeups there. So that's not a big one. In the hardware numbers, the Switch has sold almost 140 million units for 139.36. So
it's getting up there.
Yeah, getting up there. It's getting close to the DS and the PS2. That's always the question. Will it beat those?
I was pretty gung-ho. I thought it would. And now I'm looking like, I don't know, man. Especially if there is going to be a completely new system this year. we'll see if it's a refresh. I don't know.
I think that's when the PlayStation 2 made a lot of its sales, though. When the PlayStation 3 came out,
You
it was
can
when
slash the price.
True.
they cut that price of the PlayStation 2. And I knew of a lot of people who then got a PlayStation 2 when the PS3 came out. I could see the original Switch doing something similar, especially since it's on that expected trajectory almost of imitating the PlayStation 2 sales.
I was walking home from my kids' school, as we do sometimes, and I try to walk, but anyway, as we always do on school days, but like,
yay, more
I'm trying
wholesome
to
stories
walk.
about Patrick and his kid.
But the thing is, I saw a kid as we were walking by the creek, like pull out, I think it was a 3DS. It might have been a 2DS or something, but like, and showing it and talking about it. And so I'm like, I think there's a good chance the Switch will continue to sell and kids will be pulling them out in 5 years, like at elementary schools, because as kids age into it and stuff. But yeah, it is possible that it won't quite get there, but I think it might still, even if there is a new one still. And all that. Especially
it just might not be for another 10 years. Because how long did the PlayStation 2 sell, right? It was still a while.
And then I always like to talk about the materials they show off or the Q&A and that kind of stuff. I don't know if there's a whole lot, honestly, of interest this time around because I think of where we're at. They haven't shown off anything new. Like there's not been a direct recently. Obviously there could be one today or something but and then there's a lot of questions about the future financials in this Q&A where they're kind of being dodgy about the next gen. They're saying the Switch is their business for the rest of this fiscal year and yada yada. So I don't know. I read all the Q&A and I don't really feel like there's much to talk about there. I don't know if y'all saw anything in that, or people were pulling stuff out to try and make headlines in the Nintendo news sites, but none of it really.
Which is maybe what I'm about to do, because I always like to see something and be like latch onto it as well with these. The thing that I guess got my attention, it was asked that Nintendo's approach to the life cycle of hardware has changed since the Switch. What are they analyzing from that? How is that affecting their research for the next platform? And they found a way to bring up the Nintendo accounts again in that answer, and how that is going to continue to be part of their ecosystem. But it was specifically a line about Nintendo accounts being an important way for us to reconnect with people who have been taking a break from video games for a while, that may become interested again later. And this is my wishful thinking, because what it probably just means is like email lists. But what I like to think it means is that on the next system, I'm going to have access to all of my previous purchases on these shops that they shut down, online services that they're getting ready to shut down because they're doing an overhaul and they're putting it all on whatever these servers are going to be for the next system. Again, wishful thinking. It's probably just about email lists and contacting you for forever. Yeah, I think I'm going to be playing Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire on the Super Switch later this year, because it's all going to be on the same system.
I love it. I see the vision. I also really want this to be true.
Yes.
We are manifesting.
Yeah, and I would, while we're manifesting, I would also love it. I would also love it if the Super Switch had themes for the UI.
Yes.
I'm so tired of like my only options being black or white. I want my cute little Pokemon theme. I want my cute little Animal Crossing theme with the music.
Yes, I miss that too. 3DS. Exactly. And just give me all the ones that I already have on my 3DS too, right? Like just readapt them. They're still gorgeous. Every time I open up my 3DS and I get the music and the visuals, I'm like, man, I miss this. Put it on the Super Switch. That's what we call it here. I'm glad you didn't even blink. You just said it. The Super Switch. Thank you.
No, that's what I want it to be called also. It sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You're right.
See?
It does.
We're right. We're right.
It's tough. I think if the whole backwards compatibility thing, while we're talking about it, I was talking with somebody in person today about it. So shout out to Brian, who listens to the podcast as well. He was like, man, I really hope it does, so that like all our physical copies, like we can play it on it and stuff too. And it's like, yeah, I think it's that's what people want. And I don't know that there'd be that big of a backlash if it doesn't have it, but
I won't
think
be
there'd
happy
be
about it, but I get over it.
exactly. That's yes. Took the
Sorry,
words
Jordan.
out of
I
my
didn't
mouth.
mean to.
No, exactly.
well, unless there's anything else about cash and money, we can move on to some bad Nintendo news, y'all. I don't like this. This is a bummer. Super Mario Maker 2 got an update. I was just on my Switch the other day, and it's within the past week, and like saw it pop up like as an auto update that I have turned on, and I was like, oh no, what does that mean? So as you may know, if you listened to a few weeks back at AGDQ, which is Games Done Quick, the speedrunning event, there was a showcase for glitches in Mario Maker 2. And I had a bad feeling that this update was patching out all those glitches. And I could not find 100% confirmation of this. Like I couldn't find any of the people involved or like whatever talking about it. But I dug deep. I was looking at comments on the AGDQ video, like sorting by most recent. And somebody was like, I can't find these levels. And somebody else said, and they just put out a patch. And I went to Mario Maker forums, and I just like tried to dug around, and I couldn't find confirmation that that's what happened. But I'm like pretty sure based on the
timing
few things,
is too suspicious.
based on the few things I found, I think that's probably what it was, which is, it sucks because that glitch showcase was so fun. And like none of those glitches like were that big of a deal. Like, and the people who make them, you could just tell how passionate they were about discovering those glitches. And they even made like a please don't patch this out Nintendo comment.
Oh, wow.
And I get both sides of it. I really do.
Sure.
So like, because at the same time, some of those glitches are kind of crazy and it's not what they intend. And
yeah,
but the game's, it's not dead actually at all. It's got a community around it. And you're kind of these choices are like, I don't think you're like, my kid has gotten, we talked about this, me and my kid. And so he's been playing it a ton recently. It's a community and most of the popular levels don't have glitches in them, like it's a sub thing and it just kind of sucks.
I think it's more frustrating because it's like they stopped supporting the game in the way that you want, and then they decide to do something like this where it's like, this isn't really hurting anyone's gameplay experience. These people are just figuring out ways to play the game in a new way. Just a really weird line. I don't know.
It just also is like, now if there is something like this for any game, especially a Nintendo game, I don't, people are going to be hesitant to want to do a showcase or make it a big deal, which kind of is like a bummer then because we don't learn about it and those people don't get to show off what they figured out. And, I don't know. I'm just not happy about it.
I hate to think that there are reps that are specifically assigned to watching AGDQ for this reason. That's what it feels like. It's like, oh yeah, let's exploit the charity event to take away what they do. Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, if anybody has more info about this and can confirm it or deconfirm it,
please
share it with. Please let us know. We can move on to the fact that the Sora amiibo is coming out this week on the 16th. So a couple days after this podcast comes out. Do you think this is the
R.I.P. amiibo?
Yeah, do you think this is the last amiibo ever?
Right.
Like
that's right. We did an episode about it. I think so. Unless we get a new overhaul with the Super Switch. I don't know.
Yeah, another reason they could go away is like, is it worth their money to put it? I mean, maybe for legacy games, especially if it is backwards compatible, which we want. So maybe we do want amiibo support on it.
I know last episode we talked about how Mii's could make a comeback. Well, guess what? With the launch of the Super Switch, by the time you're listening to this, you are on Nintendo's website and you are ordering your customized Mii amiibo that will get here later this year. I'm so sorry. I come up with such crackpot shit.
Let's hope.
You're ordering your custom-made amiibo. That's not happening. I'm so sorry. We're never getting another amiibo after this.
I don't know. On the other side of it, I think they all sell out, right? Like they don't make tons of them. They sell. So they'll probably make random ones. It'll be like next
I think
Xenoblade game will get them or something, you know.
Princess Peach Showtime would be the game to get them with all of her different like outfits. That's like the next
Gives me
game up, right? Like if they were going to make more amiibos, that's the one. But we haven't heard anything about it, so
we would have by now too. We we're getting new Joy-Cons. We would have heard about new amiibo.
I think so as well.
Does anybody care about the Sora amiibo though?
I think I'm gonna get one and paint him to look like Ludacris now. Actually.
Yo, that's sick. I don't care, but I will buy a second one to have Summer paint me a Ludacris Sora amiibo. Yeah.
I feel like
I'm not doing that. Don't ask me.
All right, we'll move on. So I don't know. Maybe by the time this episode comes out, there'll be some news about a Nintendo Direct. So we don't want to like spend a lot of time talking about this. But man, it's mid-February and it hasn't been announced. We're recording this on the 12th for what it's worth. So I don't know that we should talk a ton about this because it could be contradicted
by the time you hear this.
But there's just been tons, of course, of talk and leaks and speculation. So it's hard not to want to talk about it in this news section. I don't know. I've been seeing lots of stuff about it and what may or may not be in it. But
I feel like we covered this all in the speculation episode in our trilogy of episodes. I don't know. Would there be anything new? Summer, sorry, what were you going to say?
Is the leading idea right now that we're getting a partner showcase, not like an actual direct?
That's been one of the things.
Which doesn't line up historically, though, for February. So, I mean, who knows? It's Nintendo. They always do what they want.
I don't know. Again, if we don't get it this week, I think I don't know. It's weird timing wise. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
I think it's likely we'll get something in the next week or two, though, right? Obviously. So we don't have to talk about it.
We know we'll get Pokemon at the end of the month, so that's a guaranteed. They have a day. They have a holiday. We will get something.
Yeah, it's just an interesting time with what I think it'll be very informative as to what and when, like news about another console might be coming in terms of what we see and when. But hard to talk about it, especially since it might be moot by the time it comes out. We can move on to.
Well, I got one wild speculation guess. There's the Xbox showcase or podcast.
I was not going to say it.
The Xbox is quitting.
15th. It's going to be back to back with the Nintendo Switch Direct, and it's going to be Game Pass on Switch. Boom, done. That's a wild speculation.
So I thought about it because it's a day that we would expect.
Why not?
All right. I am also very curious to see what that is. Like what they're going to say.
They're doing like a podcast release.
The whole build up for it. Anyway, we'll talk about that when it happens too. Okay.
Yeah.
More bad news. It's happening every week, so it's kind of hard. You get a little bit numb to it, but more layoffs in video games. What kind of hits home about this is that several of the people involved in the podcast are in Austin, Texas, and there was a bunch of layoffs in Austin, or a bunch. There was a handful of layoffs in Austin at Visual Concepts and Airship Syndicate. I mean, there's other companies too, Hidden Path and like the continuing news about the Activision layoffs and where they are, like Toys for Bob and stuff like that. So what a bummer that this continues to happen. I don't know how many people are going to have to lose their job. I don't know. In this industry, it sucks. I don't know if anybody else has anything to say about the specifics.
If you're going to look up one infographic, look up the PC Gamer graphic, and it basically details like 2023, breaks it down by month, and every dot represents a job lost. And then it also has January 2024, and it is just like peppered up and down with just how everyone who's lost their job. And I feel like, we live in a very infographic, visual Instagram society, that this is just like a really good way to visualize it for people that like don't really know that this is happening. Because I've been talking about this with people on the film set, and one of the people I work with works in the industry, video game industry, and then some of the actors are like, have no idea what's going on. I'm like, it's nuts. It's just like so many people are losing their jobs, and people just really have no idea. It's just weird. People are just completely removed from it. But anyway, if you're going to look up a graphic, look up that infographic. It kind of really hammers home.
Yeah.
I think all of our listeners know this by this now though.
Yeah, but no, seeing a picture helps, right? Like visualization of any data. And I think that PC Gamer one does help, like, to be like, oh, these are people, right? Like, and I mean, it's happening in lots of industries and related industries. So it's just a scary time for these folks, and it sucks. I don't know what else to say. We'll keep talking about it though, like Summer said, because I think that's important, and keep railing against, and we need the solutions of unionization and that sort of thing. Sort of a related news topic is like all companies being bought up and stuff like that. I don't know that this is quite that level, but Acquire, who makes games, right? And this is they make the Octopath Traveler games as well as several other franchises and stuff. They got acquired, very appropriate name. Do you think they picked that on purpose? By the parent company of Elden Ring and From Software, which is called Kadokawa, if I'm not saying that wrong. I don't know if that's quite like Microsoft buying Activision,
Not really.
But it shows, this kind of stuff happening. And I think they work together a lot, so maybe it makes sense.
I was trying to read up on this because these are games that I really care about. And so I was like, I need to make sure I understand what's going on here. And it seems that Acquire has always had a parent company. It's a matter of like who's helping them with publishing and things like that. So the likelihood of them no longer working with Square Enix is probably not. Like, people are, what does this mean for Octopath Traveler 3? Probably nothing, actually. So that's good news. It just sounds like they wanted certain resources for potential future games over here. It sounds like there's some like remakes or, sequels for like, I think the Tenchu franchise that they're hoping for. Sounds like we're going to be getting some anime games because they've been like impressed with how Octopath has gone. At least from what I've gathered is people are trying to be hopeful about this, that like, yes, in like a world and a sea of monopolies, and that this isn't quite the same level as a lot of the other acquisitions. Yes, Acquire is a funny name though. And I wanted to make a joke about, wait, who got acquired? But who got acquired?
On first?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thanks for that extra detail there. I don't know how to feel about this next one either. Disney and Epic are working together.
This is so scary. This is what we should be worried about.
So
it's bad.
Is it? Okay, thank you. I wasn't 100% sure if we should feel bad about this one. Apparently the Walt Disney Company and Epic, who makes Fortnite and Unreal Engine, are working together. Not only are they going to make games together, but Disney is investing in them and has purchased a amount of their, in some sort of an equity stake. I'm not an expert on this kind of stuff, but enough to a ton of money.
Like fake money, right? That's what we
once
always
it gets
say.
to that number, yeah, like over $1.5 billion that they're investing in Epic. So I know that Disney characters are already in Fortnite, but I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon now. And I also think, what does this mean for other studios like that might be making Star Wars games or something? Is it going to all be...
There's no more Star Wars games. They just exist within Fortnite and they're different experiences inside of Fortnite. I shouldn't say sorry, I should limit myself to things that are like unreasonable to happen. That's unfortunately a reasonable thing that can happen.
It frightens me that Disney is teaming up with the company that has most effectively found ways to sell microtransactions to children. I don't like that. I think this is going to be a thing of evil. I think they're going to try to make everybody like live inside Disney Fortnite. They're going to collaborate on like some horrifying VR thing that they're going to want people to be jacked into at all times.
Yeah, that is one of the the Polygon article about this says, and this is just speculation on their part, but it sounds like Disney is looking to create a metaverse-like product that's a one-stop shop for the company with no need to go anywhere else, is the quote from the article. To your point,
we
there,
live in
Liz.
hell.
It makes a lot of sense. The best case scenario is we just get a bunch of cars. We get Mater in Rocket League, or you can shoot Solid Snake as Olaf from Frozen. That would be sick. But that's like a best case scenario. Definitely worst case scenario is everything you're describing. I mean, I feel like they were trying to dip their toes with Dreamlight Valley. Was that the name of the game?
Mhm.
Like Animal Crossing like.
Mm-hmm.
I just like, yeah, that's kind of terrifying because they have so much IP at this point. I get that they want to exploit that IP. Also, $1.5 billion is like nothing to both of these companies, which sounds crazy to say too, though, because
You're
it's like
right.
what they bought Star Wars for $4 billion, which is already paid back in an insane amount of dividends too. Same with like Marvel. They've already just, but I mean, they obviously don't know how to start video game houses within Disney. They've been making pretty shitty games for a long time. So I think this is just like definitely like, how do we utilize this IP that we own all of? And it's just easier to team up with one big company instead of having to keep hiring little individual companies to kind of make little pieces. So it makes sense, but it is also, terrifying.
I guess you got me thinking about it. I guess best case scenario is we start getting Disney games that don't completely suck.
But I don't really give a shit if we get any Disney games.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
That's just me though. That's just like,
okay, as someone who still has like a sliver of Kingdom Hearts inside of them, I care a little bit.
Fair enough.
Just a little bit.
We can wrap it up for the news with something more lighthearted, perhaps, and that is the Knuckles show that's coming to Paramount Plus. Has been getting some discussion online, and they put out a trailer. And I mostly want to mention this for the great jokes that somebody made that like online, whatever random Twitter user this was, which was the like Sonic 3 and Knuckles coming out in the same year.
Oh.
They did it. But also I watched the trailer for this show and I enjoyed both the Sonic movies, and they weren't like cinematic masterpieces, but they were fun. So I think I'll watch this show. It looks fun. Idris Elba. What do you?
We're getting more driving in a car with an animated character, adding to that cinematic universe. I love it. We got a shot of Knuckles eating Cool Ranch Doritos, answering the age-old question, which Doritos? I thought it would be nacho cheese because the bag is red, but now we know it's Cool Ranch. I didn't see the second Sonic movie. I don't know if that's in it or if that was just a very well-placed product placement.
Right, probably, yeah.
Patrick, you saw the second movie, was it?
I don't remember Doritos being in it. I remember I could tell you the plot of the movie, but I couldn't tell you whether Doritos was in it.
I do like the hat that he's wearing. Pretty sick.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. I'll honestly, I probably will eventually watch this as well. But anyway.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's going to do it for our news segment. We are going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking all about romance in video games.
Chicka wah wah.
We are back, and this week we are talking about romance in video games, relationships in video games. This episode's coming out on February 14th, which is Valentine's Day, the romance or love holiday, at least in certain parts of the world where we are. And so we've not done an episode on this topic.
You can thank me for this one. Once again, this wouldn't have happened without me. So you're welcome.
Yeah.
Whether you're
Thank
listening.
you.
So, dear listener, whether you're listening to this with a loved one today or alone, you spend your Valentine's Day with someone special either way.
Yeah, and also we're happy to have you, Liz, here because not only do we want to talk about this topic, now we can talk about it with somebody who writes romance in video games as well. So be happy, very interested to hear your perspective on this as a writer as well as a fan or what have you. We thought maybe we'd talk about what games do romance, like not only like what games, but maybe what types of games and that sort of thing to talk about it, and like somewhat games that have done it well or maybe games that have done it poorly, what makes good relationships and romance in games.
I think I had a question.
Sure.
There is a very obvious answer to this question, but I think there's also a more nuanced answer to this question. So, there was an episode about sex in video games, and what is like to y'all like the main difference between like a romance that like and then sex in video games? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to do this episode, is because I knew you guys had already done sex in video games. And I was like, okay, well, we deserve to talk about romance in video games, because I think sex in video games is more about like hee hee ha ha sex in video games, whereas romance in video games is like, ooh, I'm getting the warm fuzzies about what's going on in my interactive media, as opposed to like getting my rocks off to interactive media, which both are valid, right? And sometimes they do meet each other, but I do think that they are also separate still. And I could keep going on, but did I? That's at least for me, and everyone else could say like how they feel about it too. But like that's my.
This is
Patrick.
Romance, and this is sex, right? Or like
Okay.
it is a
audio listener. Patrick did a heart with his fingers, and then he.
Well, like I guess I was meant to do a circle, but like yes, thank you. We do this for audio people as well. So I guess what I was trying, sex is like a part of romance, though there's also probably a part of sex that doesn't fit into romance, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But it is only a small part, right? And I think that would be my answer to that question.
I agree with Sam. I like the way that Sam said it. I think that unfortunately there are a lot of developers and writers that think that romance in a video game can't exist without sex, but that's a separate issue that I'll get into later.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about some of those games for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I just thought it would be an interesting distinction, because there is a sex episode, and yeah, I don't know.
Well, it sounds like you need to play more games with romance in them, bucko.
Well, what are some of the games that what are some of the games that people think of if you think about romance in a video game? What are some of the big ones maybe?
Mass Effect.
That's always, I think that's the first one that it introduced a lot of people to the idea of what romance could be in an interactive like experience. Has everyone here played Mass Effect?
I have not played Mass Effect.
Okay.
I have not.
Liz, you have though, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think Mass Effect is like the reason why I thought of you for this episode.
Yeah, because you followed me on Twitter for years. Like you have seen me, I think probably horny Garrus posting over the years.
Yeah, which is why I picked clips of Garrus for this segment to talk about Mass Effect.
Yes.
I knew that's what we were going to talk about. But just, it was like the first, or what, I shouldn't say, maybe not the first. I don't know what came first, like Mass Effect or Dragon Age. But with that like aspect of storytelling element of bringing romance in, the whole like choosing a partner and that being like part of the storytelling of the overall picture, not like the main focus of the game, but still like being a big part of it, and the writing just really hitting and like really fleshing out those characters.
So this is something I'm curious to talk about, and maybe this is getting ahead of ourselves. Maybe it's better to talk about games, but it makes me think about when we talk about like romance in video games, my mind goes to a game like say Mass Effect, or I don't know, like typical in like a lot of visual novels where there are a bunch of options for romance and you pick one. And I know that's not the only thing though, right? But is that, you know what I mean? Like as opposed to like there being a pre-established, this is the romance, and you could explore it in different ways. Are there games that do that?
I think what you're describing is what most people think of when thinking of romance in video games. Or like, yes, you're this character and you're like you pick your one partner and you have a relationship with them. But I know the first game that's coming to mind, most recent example that's like that is toying with like you can have more options is Baldur's Gate 3. I know there are like poly options. You also don't have to be with anybody either. You can be platonic with everyone. It doesn't have to be part of the game as well. You also can have sexual relationships without necessarily having romance as well. But you can also like have your like boo that you have a relationship with.
I was just thinking about how like it's such a recent thing, because I was thinking about Persona and how in Persona they'll punish you for having more than one romance going.
Mm-hmm. And other games have done that too. I believe in Stardew Valley, if you start to see more than one person, that ends up becoming a whole subplot as well, where they find out and find ways to like punish you. And I believe that happened in a Story of Seasons game as well. where they all talk and then have an intervention with you.
I think that's kind of interesting. I didn't know that. I think that's kind of cool, but it's kind of like a mixed bag, right? Like I think
Sure.
like that's how some people would react. Right. Like so but also like video games are fantasy, and if that's what you want to do, I don't know. Yeah.
If that's how you want to write it.
Yeah.
Right. Probably easier to write, easier to program, I'm sure too. to just have one relationship. Right. Like God bless Larian Studios for like picking out like 3 possible poly configurations that could maybe happen, and then but everything else has got to be solo.
Yeah.
You think about it from a programming perspective.
That game
maybe.
in general is pretty tough to use as a comparison because of like what they've accomplished for that sort of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that about like Stardew Valley. I mean, that's another big one that I feel like opened a lot of people to romance in video games, right? Because that game blew up and it has that option.
Has everyone here played Stardew Valley?
I have
Liz,
not.
you have.
I've
Jordan,
played some, like not enough to get that far in the
You didn't romance
relationship
anyone.
part. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm also really bad at
chickens.
those kinds of, I'm really into like chopping wood. When I play those kinds of games, all I do is
not
resource.
about the romance.
I resource gather. I resource gather and hoard.
Okay. Well, Liz, then I got to ask. So, who did you romance in Stardew Valley? I want to talk about this, right? Like, who did you pick?
So I have two playthroughs. And the first time around when I was a younger and dumber woman.
Yes, let's hear it.
I picked Shane.
Yes, this is a trend. This is a trend. This is like documented. I'm going to do a study on this. This is real. Continue.
Yeah, because of course I was like, oh, I can fix him and he's so cute and sad and I can just give him pizza and he'll like me. And
this is the footage I chose for Stardew Valley as well. It's of like Shane fucking drunk, passed out on the dock. Yes.
Yeah. And then of course, you get the relationship to level 10 and then you marry him and then he just goes back to being, what he was before. It's like, God damn it.
Right.
So, then the second time around I romanced, he's the writer. He's the Elliot.
Elliot. Yes. On the beach, the writer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Of course.
I was like,
so you picked yourself is what you did.
Basically, because I was like, we have similar life goals, I don't have to change you. We have very compatible lifestyles, it all works out.
Yeah. So I also picked Shane. And this is a trend that I've noticed about a lot of people on their first playthrough. People, I'll just say people like us, who they were younger, they were first playing through. Maybe he reminded them of who they were currently with or had most recently been with. And you were like, wow, a lot is wrong with him, but he sure could maybe change. And he he kicks alcoholism, but he's still a fucking slob. So on my second playthrough, I ended up going for Haley, who is the pretty, at first mean girl, who then the more that you get to know her, she doesn't change. She just opens up to you more. She just needed somebody that was willing to spend time with her and learn about her interests, which is something that nobody else really wanted to do. Because again, she's like the pretty girl in town. And you'll probably hear a trend throughout this entire episode of like who my first choice would be and then who my second choice would be. And it tends to be that kind of a thing. Stardew Valley is also interesting in that you can get divorced in that game as well. And then there's like elements of magic involved where you can choose to have their memory wiped. If you're willing to work with the wizard, you also don't have to do that. And that also like impacts gameplay of having like an ex in town, especially if you have kids with them. All kinds of.
Wow.
Can you get remarried?
Yeah.
Can you get divorced again?
Yeah. It's expensive, just like in real life.
I'll be honest, this is great to know. Like, I didn't realize the depth of
they keep
that.
Adding more. That's the crazy thing. Concerned Ape is still putting out stuff. There's a big update that either just came out or is coming out really soon that I'm like, wow, I really need to start playing again. And then who will I romance?
That's cool. I like to hear that thing about Shane and about like, I just think that's like a good design. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, and also really cool that it has that depth with like divorce and that sort of thing.
and how it impacts like your other relationships in town. Like I think that is a game that has also done again an indie game that took a model from another example, the Harvest Moon Story of Seasons games, which don't get me wrong, still like a lot of the relationships in those. But Stardew Valley was the first one to let you have gay relationships. Every character is canonically bisexual for that reason. And it wasn't until after Stardew Valley that Story of Seasons was like, okay, we need to do this now because of the success of Stardew Valley. Which is a shame because I love some of the romances from some of the older Story of Seasons games, but
yeah,
I digress.
Well, real briefly, maybe that's a chance to talk about the fact that, as times and things have changed, relationships in video games have changed too, right? There's been more, gay relationships, LGBTQ representation, right? And I think somebody has a note on here about, even like Fire Emblem, right? Historically, like is a big franchise for relationships and that sort of thing, and has more representation now, even if it's not perfect.
It's still not perfect, but it's way better than what that. And it sucks that I even have to say that, right? But the fact is that we came from. Sorry to interrupt you again, Patrick.
You're good.
But I get really like feisty talking about Fire Emblem because we went from the first, to my understanding, like in the modern Fire Emblem games, were the first game that we had like a user character, what we call avatar, self-insert, whatever, was Awakening, where you would then like that character would pair off with another character, and there were no LGBT options in that game, which I kind of unfortunately understand because a big premise of that game was having offspring and then sending those children to war, which they then still tried to weirdly shoehorn into the plot of Fire Emblem Fates and had, I think, just 2 gay possible relationships that were still inherently extremely problematic because of the way that they handled them. So it would have been better if they just not had the option at all because of how they handled it. They should have just not done it. Which is also a huge shame because like the petting mechanic in Fire Emblem Fates, I'm a sicko who likes it. So anyway, then we have 3 houses, which it's better. It's not a lot, but it's better. I know the fandom is divided in that there are no like contextual differences necessarily between like for example, Edelgard. Everyone loves, like a lot of people say that Edelgard is for the sapphics. And I totally agree with that. Some people will say, oh, that's erasure for the men who love Edelgard. And I say, you still have her. It's fine. But like there's no dialogue changes there, which like that's good and bad, right? It's like, yeah, it would be a lot to rewrite certain things, and some words have more meaning depending on the context of the kind of relationship it is. Some people find the words like more meaningful depending on like the gender of the partner, things like that. And then in Fire Emblem Engage, the most recent Fire Emblem game, people will say that everyone is canonically bisexual in that game because you can be with anybody regardless of your gender. That being said, they toned down the romance like hardcore. There's only maybe 5 relationships in Engage that are like overtly like we are a romantic pair, and like even like feel like they appropriately build up to that. So like Engage is not a great example compared to the writing of the relationships of previous, and most specifically the past 3 user insert games. I have to specify how much I have to specify here of Awakening, Fates, and 3 Houses. That was a lot of rambling.
You're great.
I'm gonna breathe now.
Well, I'm gonna take this chance to ask Summer and Liz a question, like, which is like, I mean, I see on the one hand you could have something that's quote unquote realistic, like we talked about with Stardew Valley, where like people might get jealous and not every character is open to poly, or you have like, but on the other side, every character is canonically bisexual, and that's not maybe realistic either, right? Like,
totally.
I think it's maybe depends on the game, right? But or it depends on the fandom or whatever. But like, you're kind of trading maybe like some design elements where some sort of like characterizations, you know what I mean, that are like more concrete for like choices, right? I'm kind of curious about that. Like, that wasn't like a question so much as just me talking, but I'd love to hear thoughts on that idea of like, do you find that people who play these games really just want to do what they want to do? And, you know, or like when you're writing, Liz, does that ever come into play? Or I don't know.
Not really, because like in the games that I write, like the romance options are like predetermined, and there's usually like 4, and then like depending on fan interest, there will typically be like a bonus episode or like a short story where it's like, oh, you get to have like a little interlude with like the villain or like the, you know, one of the main romance options, dad, or something like that. So like, you know, in my specific area, there's a lot of like adjusting based on fan feedback.
That is kind of what I was wondering. Yeah, that's like I think it depends on the fandom, right? Like it depends on what people want. Maybe some people like Fire Emblem fandom wants something versus, you know, like Mass Effect fandom wants, you know what I mean? It's interesting.
I think it's really interesting to know though that in the world, I guess, of otome games, that they are really listening to their fandom. They want to make sure that their fans are getting what they want, and that's how they end up producing more content, and that's how you end up writing new chapters, is based on how the fans react.
Yeah, it's great, and it really has like, it really has put some like things in perspective. Like when it comes to like being in other fandoms, and this is now me complaining.
Please,
you know, especially in like mainstream like AAA games that have like romance content, you know, there would be, you know, like a subset of fans who would ask for like, oh, like we want to be able to romance this character, and you know, the writers would come back with like, well, no, because that's the way that we wrote it, and you know, kind of like, well, we don't understand what you see in him, basically. I'm thinking very specifically about some Dragon Age characters and some Fallout characters.
I think that's cool that like, I mean, people should listen to their fans, right? I mean, but at the same time, I can also see the reverse of that, right? To be like, you know, but maybe not in this instance, but in some instances that, you know, but yeah, I think if enough people are telling you something, like that's probably Dragon Age. You mentioned that for the first time tonight. I think that's another big game that I think, like Mass Effect.
Tell us who you love in Dragon Age and tell us why. Tell us why you like the romance in Dragon Age.
Oh my God. Okay.
Spotlight.
Well, my favorite Dragon Age character, I can't romance.
Okay.
But I want to, but I can't.
Mm-hmm.
I wish like so badly that in Dragon Age 2 they would let you romance Varric, and you can't do that. You can pick, you know, and I say this so lovingly, you can pick all of the most insane members of your friend group. You can pick people who have such deep-seated personal issues that like you would not want to touch them with a 10-foot pole, but like you cannot date the guy who is like nice and respectful and always there for you and is not trying to like blow up buildings, you know. He's just a good dude, and I think a lot of the reason why you can't romance him is because he is a dwarf, and the writers were like, oh, it would be weird, and I'm like, why?
Larry said, fuck that.
Yeah, like, you know. He, like, a large part of his plot line is that, you know, he's been like desperately pining after this like other dwarf lady who like doesn't really want to be involved with him, and like he named his crossbow after her, and it's like, this is a perfect opportunity for him to move on. You know, like
I have only played Dragon Age Origins, but I think her name Morrigan.
Yeah.
The Witch of the Wilds.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. That was the only option. As soon as I saw her, I was like, yeah, if I can romance her, that's my pick. Easy money. I guess maybe second was like Alistair. Is that a character?
Yeah. Alistair's great.
That was my second pick, but no, I think I only played that game once and I was male. So yeah, I was like, Morgan, my goth mommy, my Witch of the Wilds, come on over. Yeah.
Any other like specific games that we want to make sure and hit? Because we've got a few more on this list.
Well,
I feel like there's a
Patrick,
couple.
Who have you romanced in anything? I want to put the spotlight on you
Yes.
then for a
I
second.
really
Tell
think
us.
the only games I can think of where you choose character is like you said, Three Houses, and I played Engage, and I don't think I even romanced a character in Engage. Isn't it like you have to give them the ring or something at the end?
Yeah,
I don't
you
think
give
I
them-
did that.
It's not even quite. It's like towards the end, you give them the ring, and then you get like a special chapter related to that, like with getting the ring and everything. And
I missed my chance. I mean, I could always go back, but I don't think I'm gonna.
okay,
But I can tell you who I would have given it to if you can.
yeah,
give it
who would you have given it to, Patrick?
Well, in Three Houses, I picked Petra. I'll say that, and
Hell yeah!
I don't know if I would do that again. I know nothing wrong with it. But I'm trying to think of the names of the characters in Engage now because I feel like I've forgotten all of their names, which is bad, right?
Oh, you need to play through it again with me right now. I'm maddening. And then,
so that's how bad I am at answering this question.
Damn, he doesn't care about romance at all, you guys.
I am over here grinding battles. I don't know, which is strange because I liked the story part of Three Houses more than the battles, but I think I liked the battles more in Engage.
Absolutely. Tell us what you liked about Petra then.
I don't know. She was cute. I'm really shallow.
Damn, she's a princess from another country. She's really talented. She can speak like 5 languages. I'm doing the work for you.
You are.
God.
This is like an intervention from my
I'm so
wife,
sorry.
probably.
I'm so
I could be more romantic. So I don't know. I don't have a good
I'm just
answer.
giving you a hard time, Patrick.
It's okay.
What do y'all like about gameplay implications of the romance? Because I know sometimes it's just about like the story and having that option to romance, and then sometimes you get something out of the romance. Like what do you like about that aspect of it?
This might be a good time to talk about Persona.
Yeah. Well, in Persona, like the social links that you have, the romances that you can have, or even just the friendships with characters are literally how you level up your personas, and how you become more powerful through these bonds with others. So there's a very direct correlation between romance and getting stuff out of the romance. Trying to word that in a way that does not sound like opportunistic, but
I think it's important to talk about too. That's why I was like, ooh, I want to make her talk about Persona and see where it goes. because like if you think about it too hard, or maybe not too hard, but you start to wonder, well, they really gamified the relationships in Persona.
Yeah, they do.
Which for good or for ill, because it's fun still.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about that because I've been playing a lot of Persona 3 Reload, and like in conversations, the answers that like might be the most like honest for the person, or maybe will benefit them the most in the long run, don't get you as many points as like just agreeing with everything they say. Like I'm currently in a social link friendship with this little twerp who is really intent on dating his teacher, despite all evidence to the contrary saying that that's a horrible idea. And every time you try to tell him that that's a horrible idea, you don't get any little like musical notes that play over his head. Like your job as a friend is to encourage his delusions. And I was like, I don't like that.
So those are the hits and misses in Persona, because there's a lot to like, and then there's it's really anime sometimes in the way that they treat certain relationships. And I think as a fan base, we kind of take what we want and we leave what we don't.
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard for me to like talk about Persona and not bring up Persona 3 Portable, because my favorite thing about the Persona franchise is an option that like not many people have even had the option to play until recently, which is the female protagonist in Persona 3 Portable, because it's such a male perspective focused series for the most part. And one of the social links that you can have as a girl in Persona 3 Portable is so like, it's so good. I'm talking about Shinjiro. I'm talking about romancing Shinjiro, my other husband. And like big spoilers if you haven't played that, plug your ears. By choosing to pursue a social link with him, as you can choose, you can change his fate. You can keep him alive because he's supposed to die, and you can go find his pocket watch for him, and you can give him the gift of more time, which I love so much.
That's cool.
Yeah, games where it actually, the potential like relationships impact the actual outcome of the story. Patrick, Three Houses does this a little bit with some of the characters, not necessarily in a romance way, but depending on the route that you're in, right? Depending on the students that you recruit, can really change their fate depending on the big ones that people like to talk about in Three Houses are Marianne and Bernadetta, depending on the route that you're playing as. If you don't recruit them, right? Like if recruiting them saves their life, depending on the route that you're playing. It's very similar. The games are how many years old? I can say it.
I like this question a lot, though, because I do think that this is something that maybe hasn't been fully explored. Even Jordan's question, like gameplay. I mean, maybe it hasn't. I'm just not aware.
Gameplay consequences. We're moving away from romance now too, but yeah.
Well, like
it's good. I mean, just relationships. Yeah.
Yeah, of the relationship choices, not just story beats, but it gets you this bonus or that. And it also made me think about, and you kind of hinted at this, Liz, which is like, and this kind of gets back to my question about like sort of realism versus whatever you want, right? And then you kind of talked about this with like the honest answers, or the like more or like, I also am interested in a game where like, some people are harder to romance than other people, and some people aren't just you should answer as you, and like you're just not gonna convince some people by doing that, right? Like because I think that's more interesting. That maybe if and I'm sure there are games that do that to varying degrees, but it's also harder to create a game like that. Because when I did make a little short visual novel, I tried to do something like that and I gave up pretty quick. Because I didn't want it to be point based, right? Like I didn't want it to be like you answer this and you get 2 points for this character. I wanted it to be more like that is like you're more agreeable if you say that, and then this character likes more agreeable people or whatever, but that was just too complicated and I gave up.
It's a lot of different values that have to come into play, and then additional values of how those values are interpreted, I think,
right.
Programming side. Mm-hmm.
But I think it would be cool and I'm sure somebody out there is doing it. And there was even a game that I kind of modeled that on, which wasn't necessarily romance, but it did involve relationships and people liking you or not liking you based on your choices, and it not being like a point system in the back end, but being more like this. If you answer certain ways, then you're shaping your playable character's personality, you know what I mean? And then some people like somebody who's abrasive and some people don't like, you know what I mean? And that sort of thing.
I guess Triangle Strategy kind of did that.
Did they?
I a little bit, yeah.
Because of all of the different choices that you made, from like whether you chose to pet all of the cats to whether you didn't fully explore certain towns, and the types of choices that you made in battle, like these all had different values, and then different characters had different values that they were more aligned with, or that they appreciated, and that would impact how they would choose how to align with you. We're really losing the plot now, but
But yeah, maybe
because that's a game with a predetermined romance. Because when I think about games that have like a predetermined romance and like that's just like part of the story, I think about like Final Fantasy games where you don't really have a lot of impact on them. It's just kind of part of the story. It's a little arguable in Final Fantasy X just because of 10-2 and how that kind of made things wibbly wobbly. But in Triangle Strategy, there is like an established couple that you kind of follow their life, well, with the story, and how not to, I don't want to spoil that game too much because I know a lot of us are still working through some of those endings. But how their future is impacted by all of those choices as well, like how all of your other relationships look. And that's like the system as a whole, which is interesting.
But I do think even if something's linear, I think exploring romance is still interesting. I think about a game like Florence.
That was the mobile game, right?
Yeah, you can play it on Switch too. But yeah, it's a very short linear experience, but so the relationship happens regardless of what you do or don't do or what have you.
You're like moving through it. Yeah, it's how they use the gameplay to.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and so I think there is ways of doing that can explore romance or relationships. But yeah, to your point, though, that we are getting kind of close to time here. So I do think we should hit a couple major topics. And I definitely want to hear anything Liz wants to share with us about writing as well. But maybe we can quickly hammer out any favorites that we didn't get a chance to say of games or relationships, or who you want to have a relationship that doesn't exist.
My other major complaint is that in Fallout 4, you cannot romance Nick Valentine. His last name is literally Nick Valentine, and you cannot date him. And they have like shamed people who ask about this, like, oh, why would you want to romance him? Like, he doesn't have the appropriate parts. Like, he's a robot. Like, I don't care. I will,
You still find a way. Love finds a way.
Literally, I can upgrade him. I have the technology.
Right? Like, we're talking about fucking fantasy. Yeah. Thank you.
And also, like, why is that necessary?
Right.
Why is that necessary
it's a video
for love?
Sex versus romance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're not thinking with their hearts. They're only thinking with their dicks.
Yeah.
Let us romance Nick Valentine.
For real.
That's such a shameful answer from them too, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's not surprising, like Bethesda romance options.
Yeah.
So like they're there, but they don't really do anything besides, like, I think in like Skyrim you get like a little bit of gold and like a meal once a day or something if you marry someone. It's like, okay, I guess that's
just
cool.
In your house. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I'm sure.
Really shows the writer's attitude towards love there.
I think they're just like, I don't want to write all these fucking dialogue options. This is all you get and you're going to be happy with it. Like, I don't know. That's just kind of how their attitude, I think it's more their attitude towards their fans. They're like, why are you focusing on this? You can run around the world. Anyway, whatever. As far as favorites in games, dude, I don't know. My brain, I don't know. Summer, you take it away. While you're talking, I'll try to think of one.
Okay, fine. Well, y'all know I love Fire Emblem, so I'm going to talk about that really quick. My first husband in Fire Emblem was Gaius in Awakening. Everybody was like, no, you got to marry Chrom. And I was like, but he's ginger and likes candy. And calls me Bubbles, which I think is cute. On my most recent playthrough, though, I did marry Chrom, and then I was like, okay, I get it, fine, I get it. I'm not going to go into every relationship in Awakening, but there are a lot of optional pairings, like amongst all of the other characters that you can set up that are like really adorable. Some of them are also bad, and that's on purpose. And I do think that is an interesting idea with the writing in like how they handle relationships in Fire Emblem. So then I have to talk about the love of my life, Claude Von Regan in Fire Emblem Three Houses. A lot of people don't love how his ending is with the player character because it's, he left me after he proposed. Yes, and then in your epilogue, it's explained that you then come back together to rule is what it's. I just love the way, like, I don't know, something about his confession to you versus the other lords. But maybe, I mean, Joe Ziga, his voice actor, obviously has a lot to do with that. The delivery of, I love you, I've always loved you, this is how things were supposed to be, and this is the dream world we were meant to make, or however, whatever the line is. It's like something about it's not just about us, it's about everything that we are capable of. I love that. Like the beauty that comes from love. And that's what Cloud of Funriken is to me. But I also want to, one of the first romances I ever experienced in games, I got to give a shout out to Final Fantasy X, got to give a shout out to Yuna, and I still say Titus. So I paused before I said his name. Titus, do we have an agreement here? You guys don't care.
I say Titus.
You say
Yeah,
Titus.
I call him Titus also.
All right. Yuna and Titus. Again, a linear story, but I thought the way that the romance was handled in that game was so beautiful. Just, and you get to the scene where they're in the lake and the Tsutsiki Dane plays, and it's just, it's so good. I was also like 14. So like, of course it was beautiful to me. And then I know that the fandom tends to be divided on this. But as a recently Zelda pilled person, I am so obsessed. I could watch Zelda and Link AMVs for days. Me and one of my friends were just always sending each other like Zelda and Link fan edits of just like all of the beautiful parallels between them throughout throughout all of the games. And I'm like, oh my God, I get it now. And I need it all. And it's so beautiful, but it's a good example of they won't explicitly say it. And there are people who are like, well, they're like brother and sister. And I'm like, how about you shut the fuck up? No, but they do that on purpose. They leave it ambiguous on purpose because, I don't know, some people want to interpret it that way, I guess. Or it's just a princess and her knight. I don't know.
It's very game specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too.
Like there are games like, obviously there are children in some of the games too, so that's different.
So that would be a little weird, yeah.
But like Minish Cap, having recently played that, they feel like best friends in Minish Cap, but they're children. But then you play Skyward Sword, and that's probably the most actual romance one, and it's really great. It's really sweet, and I like it.
It's the game that's like that set everything else off too, right? It's meant to be like the first in like chronological, which like then sets the tone and like for like every other game. Then like it puts it in your brain that it always has been, right?
And there's also the weirdness of just Link doesn't talk. So it doesn't help. But I do feel like there's also that tension then in it, which is kind of interesting and adds, and that's why we're talking about it, right?
I feel like for Zelda, it kind of reminds me, and this is because I just read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. It's like there's a romance that's like beyond just like a traditional
sexual
attraction, or like it's just beyond that. It's to another level, and that's what I kind of always viewed Zelda and Link as. It's like they have like a more legitimate spiritual connection through the spirits of Hyrule as two intertwined souls throughout time, but it's also a three-way with Ganon, so take that for what you will. It's a little fucked. And also I did think of a couple while y'all were talking, and I think for me, I like more like nuanced or complicated relationships in video games. It's like I've just consumed so much media by this point in my life that like if it's not of a complicated story, I'm like, I don't really buy it, or I get a little bit bored. And so I kind of like the one in It Takes Two of just like them working through issues that they have, because it's like very real. Like any relationship you have, whether it be romance or friendship, you're gonna run into conflict, and just like how do you take that and work through it. So I really like the way that worked through that, even though the kid in that game looks fucking terrifying and is uncanny valley child. And then I also really liked the Marstons in the Red Dead Redemption games, because you have two games where you have like you get to see their relationship develop, and it's like not the explicit point of the games until it is, but it's just like a beautiful like building relationship of like how they helped each other in this kind of fucked up situation, which is like really nice. But Yeah, those are the two I could think of off the top of my head.
Well, I think we should wrap it up. But Liz, I definitely want to give you a chance to both talk about anything that you might want to share about writing for games and romance in particular, and also maybe tell us about some of your games so that we, listeners, viewers can check it out.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's interesting because like the games that I write are typically for like a teen girl audience. Like they are primarily consumed by like 13 to 17-year-old girls, I think. So like I always have that in the back of my head when I'm writing. And this is something that I didn't really get the chance to talk about with the the gamification of romance topic, but there have been times where I'm like, this is a little ethically dicey of like I'm putting these good romance options behind a paywall. And I'm making some poor child beg for her parents' money so that she can read 500 words of this like vampire anime dude taking off his shirt. It's we've all been there.
Yes, make that money.
I've been that girl, so I get it. But I'm usually not working with characters that I've created. I'm usually not working with plots that I've created.
Right.
There are a lot of romance tropes that I have to work with, but like it's like our readers really enjoy this, and so I have to write it, and it's like, but I don't enjoy this, and I don't enjoy that it's being aimed at this audience. But what can you do?
I have done a little bit of freelance writing for games, and I understand what you're saying in terms of if you're the writer, it's not your game, right? Like you don't get to pick, and you can pitch things, but they're very, probably not going to happen.
Yeah. And, more specifically, I think also a lot about, how relationships are depicted in media and what influence that has on like the audience that it's for. And, obviously I know that like, most people can tell the difference between fiction and reality, but, when you're a 13-year-old girl, you're kind of like, well, I want a relationship that's just like Twilight or whatever. And, it can lead you down some paths. I'll say that.
You pick Shane.
You pick Shane.
But maybe the turnaround for this is that you can always have a second playthrough.
You can always have a second playthrough. Absolutely.
And you might find someone that isn't Shane.
I think that's where we should end this.
Do you want to talk about any of your games really quick though before we move on?
So the one that I did write entirely myself and came up with the characters and the plot and everything is called Paranormal Cryptid Lovers. It's on the Google Play App Store, and it's on the Otomania app on iTunes as well. I'm really proud of it. It's set in the 90s in like a small kind of Twin Peaks-esque town. And then there's also The Curse of Death's Wish or The Curse of Death's Kiss. I'm not entirely sure what it's called. It has two different names, but that's also in the same places. I'm really proud of that one also. It has a disabled heroine and some really cool romance options.
Okay, well, thank you, Liz. With that, we're going to take another short break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about the games that we've been playing recently. There's two games I wanted to talk about this week. I've really gotten back into playing Smash, Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. I have gone through obsessive periods and I'm back on it. And I got back into Elite Smash, which felt good because it happened relatively quickly, and I've managed to stay in it. But I just like the people that are at like the lower levels of Elite Smash, which is kind of where I belong. It's a really weird field. I think there's a lot of people who are trying to get into it and trying to hold on to it, and so like there's not many people rematching me if I beat them. And there's a lot of people who, once I start beating them, just quit, which is frustrating.
Right,
And
because
then
it used to be you would find somebody who was really your equal, and then you'd like go at it for a while,
yeah,
right?
and
You
like
both wanted to like
a
get
little
better.
below. That's what it feels like, and this is just anecdotally my experience. And then also like some weird rule sets and stuff where I'm like, you're just using this rule set to get into Elite Smash. Like, so it's interesting.
Oh, that's what I'm gonna do.
So that was interesting. But then the other game I want to talk about is Sonic Superstars. Finally rolled credits on Sonic Superstars. Yeah.
A glowing review.
I was just gonna say a winning review.
Like, I really want to like this game, and it wasn't terrible. The final boss was really frustrating. Talking about stories in games, man, like, it's a Sonic game. I don't need it to be a great story. They do this thing in this game where they don't have any dialogue, which isn't a problem inherently, right? I can think of many games that don't have a written text, but still have a great story. But they just, the whole time, anytime a story beat happened, I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, why is that character here? And I couldn't tell you what the plot is. Not that it's not Robotnik does something and they chase him down, but it was weird.
Clearly not the same writers as the death of Sonic the Hedgehog.
No, not at all. And that's the funny thing. Like, that game was well written.
The best written Sonic game.
And then the other thing about the final boss, I don't know, the game has glitches, and that's what's frustrating for a game of this caliber. Like, there are times in the final boss where like I would get hit and my rings would just despawn, and like I couldn't get the rings back. And you're like, what? That's anyway. Final boss was real frustrating, but we beat it. We rolled credits, and it unlocks a new character, and we were playing that a little bit. But those are the two games that I've been mostly wanted to talk about playing this week. Oh, and before I move on, David wanted us to say, and I can't wait to hear about this actually, because I hope he will still talk about this next week, because Steam Next Fest is happening right now. And that's a big thing where a ton of indie games and smaller games, as well as big games, have a lot of demos out. And so, David's probably played 100 of them by now. So we'll hear about that next week. But somebody else want to go? What have y'all been playing?
You heard it here first. Next episode is David's Next Fest demo review episode. I'll go next because it's not super different. I kept going on Blasphemous, and I got really mixed feelings about this game. I'm mixed on Souls-likes, but I really liked Hollow Knight. But this one in particular, like the platforming and the enemies combined, is like pretty brutal. So that I'll be playing the same section of the game for 30 minutes at a time. And I get really frustrated because it's like, I just want to do anything else in this game and move forward on the map. This is supposed to be a Metroidvania where I explore the map, but I can't even get to the next part of the map. And I find myself just like turning it off after about 30, 45 minutes to like, okay, I got to the next checkpoint. That took me way longer than it should have. So I don't know. I'm kind of like mixed, and maybe I just need to get good. Maybe I'm like not playing it in sequence enough, but something about it just is like, maybe not clicking with me, but I'm gonna see it through to about halfway and see what's up after that. Like, get through the first. There's like surprise, 3 things you have to collect. So I'm gonna get through the first thing and see like what's up. But I got really frustrated with that last night, and then I just started. I was like, I'm gonna play a game I know I can win, and so I started Wargroove. I have not played it. I have not played the new Advanced Wars reboot, but I was like, I like that style of game. I love SRPGs, and I wanted to try something a little bit different, because it's like somewhere halfway between like a tactics game and halfway between like a real-time strategy game. It's like this like weird melding because you build units, but it's like all grid based and everything. So story's like fairly basic, but I don't really mind. The gameplay is pretty fun. I think I'll probably keep going with this. This is a game I've been meaning to play for a long time. It was on a good discount sale not too long ago. Probably picked it up for like $3 or $4, criminally low. Very good so far. animations are gorgeous. Love the art style, but we'll see. And then back on Slay the Spire, and I say that with like a heavy sigh because it is probably one of my most played games, because I have like about 75 hours on Switch, but that doesn't include the time I played it on Game Pass. And I played it probably equal amounts on Game Pass. And right now I'm trying to beat the game as the Watcher character, which is the expansion character, the DLC character that they added. And it's just so tough to get the RNG to go in your favor to build the right deck to be able to make it to the end. And I'm getting a little frustrated, but then I just start a new run and I'm like, I fucking love this game. Something about it just really scratches the right itch. It's like a single player board game that I don't have to have someone else to play. So it's nice. But anyway, that's about it. That's what I've been playing. What about y'all?
I have been playing a lot of Persona 3 Reload, as I said. I'm absolutely loving it. It's the original Persona 3 is a game that is like very, very dear to my heart, and so I'm having a lot of feelings, and it's absolutely gorgeous, and the new music is great, and I've been having a very good time with it, and I think almost at like the halfway point now, and I'm just like, oh, I don't want it to be over.
Would you say is it still good for people who haven't played the original?
Yes.
Okay.
I would, even though it doesn't have, because I know that they're going to include DLC of The Answer, which is the epilogue that
I
was
didn't know
included.
I didn't know that was confirmed.
Yes, or maybe it wasn't confirmed, but somebody did a little sneaky data mine, and they're gonna put answer content in, and I don't think they're gonna put in the female protagonist route for portable. So it's not the most complete version of the game, but I think it is the best way to experience the story. They put in a lot of quality of life things that are like in the series going forward. So if you start with 3 Reload and then you go to whatever version of 4, it won't be terrible for you. And then this has been kind of put on pause recently, but my best friend and I recently started a Baldur's Gate 3 run, and we made our characters based off of our favorite professional wrestlers, because that is my new hyperfixation that has I think gradually morphing into a special interest, which I'm like, how did I get here? Why?
Okay, so who are they?
Yeah.
So it's Chris Statlander and Danhausen from AEW, and I am playing as Danhausen, and it is the most chaotic and beautiful thing you could ever hope for.
I love that.
By the end of this, our current Yakuza and Persona duties, we might pick it up again sometime in 2045. But by the end of the playthrough, I think millions injured, 1,000 dead. A good time.
Yeah, a good time. Well, I get to talk about Evil Fortnite, because they just added Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to the game, which I don't normally care about. But there's a lot of...
Which version?
So I don't know anything about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I'm looking at the trailer right now, and
is it the Michael Bay version? Is it the new versions? Is it the old ones?
It's not any specific one.
I don't know that it's...
I would say it's kind of a merging of the newest one and an older one. It's sort of a different take.
They've added pizza parties to the game, and they've added a bunch of melee weapons that you have to figure out how to get good at, which I am starting to get there, because in order to win Battle Royale, if it's between you and whoever is left, you've got to get in close for close combat, and it's going to be a battle of who has gotten better at either the katanas or the nunchucks. That's how that's going to end. So I'm still playing Fortnite with my roommate, still building up Battle Pass. Got to get Bird is the Word. emote from Family Guy. Okay. And then I'm still working on my maddening playthrough of Fire Emblem Engage. It's going really well. I think it's actually unlocked a different part of my brain about SRPGs that I haven't fully understood. I obviously still love the romance. Like that is always going to be like the part that I'm like, that's the reason I play these games. But gosh, I think I'm finally understanding why people who don't care about that part like Fire Emblem. I'm finally like, I feel like I finally get it. Cause yeah, exactly. It's forcing me to learn about all these different abilities and items and how to make all these different like brain breaker combos. And I'm having a really good time with it. It was like the difficulty curve was like really at the beginning of the game. And then I got through the chapter that everybody said was going to be like, this is what's going to make or break your playthrough. I think it's chapter 11. I got through that. Okay. I don't think I had to reset it at all. And I still got like the optional item that was on the map. So I think I might be good at games, you guys. I think I might be a gamer.
I have a question. When a character dies, do you reset?
It depends on the version of Fire Emblem that you're playing. In the specific chapter that I was in, it is actually they figure out different plot reasons for you to be able to like reset time depending on the version of the game. And it's been like a more modern thing. But in this specific chapter, the first half of it, the reason, like the way you're able to reset time has been taken from you, like for a plot reason. And that's what makes it that much more difficult of a chapter and why people say in maddening, this is going to like make or break whether you're going to keep playing the game. And I got to the point where you get the time reset back. And I was like, wait a second, I'm doing okay. And I got to this point. Holy shit. This is what like incels online like rage quit about. And I'm doing fine. So that's touching grass is actually like how you play, is how you be good at games. Who knew? So now to answer your question, me personally, like on the flip side of that, do I personally reset the game if somebody dies? Yes. The only time that I got so frustrated was like my very first time playing a Fire Emblem game. How many years ago? Shadow Dragon, the remake on the DS. And I understand now too that like there are mods that you're supposed to play that game with for quality of life reasons to play it better. But I was playing it before any of that existed, and I didn't know any better, and it wasn't on the internet enough to know. And I was like, damn, I hate this. Seda, however you pronounce her name, Marth's Boo. I was like, damn, she is annoying. I hate this game. I've talked about Fire Emblem way too much today. Please, let's wrap it up. Let's set sail.
Well, that's going to do it then for this episode on romance and relationships in video games. If you're out there listening and you have any thoughts on relationships and romance in games,
tell us.
Let us know. Let us know.
Tell us who your OTP is. Sorry, Patrick, I had to.
You got it. Thank you so much, Liz, for coming on and joining us to talk about this.
Of course.
Thanks to MilkyWay.co, who does our website. Thanks to Corduroy, who does our music. If you're looking for me, Patrick, online, you can find me most places as PDYX and my game company, One Frog Games.
You can find me on most social media at Weebwitched.
You can find me at Boardan.
And what about you, Liz? Where can people find you or your work?
You can find me on X or Twitter. You can find me on Elon Musk's hell site at Otachis, like the kaiju from Pacific Rim.
Very nice. Well, again, that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much to everyone who listens. Thank you so much for all your great comments on that 5-year anniversary show. That was so nice. And I'm doing my best David here and say be kind to yourself and be kind to everyone you come in contact with. And we're going to see you again with another great topic next week. Until then, bye-bye.